I patrol Yellowstone after dark. The rules aren't for visitors. The rules were waiting on the desk when I arrived. No envelope this time. No sealed packet. Just a single laminated sheet sitting in the center of the desk under a coffee mug that still had dried residue in the bottom from whoever had been here before me. The mug had not been washed. The previous ranger had left in a hurry, or had not left voluntarily, or had simply stopped caring about the mug at some point, and I was not going to find out which by asking anyone, because nobody at this posting answered that kind of question directly. I washed the mug and I read the rules and I started my first shift. My name is Curtis Hale. I am 54 years old. I spent 17 years as a water treatment plant operator in rural Nevada, and specifically at a facility that served a mining operation in the high desert, about 60 miles from the nearest town. The plant ran 24 hours a day, and someone had to be there at all hours to monitor the systems and respond to changes in the readings and make sure the water coming out of the process met the standards required. Most of that work happened at night because the day shift handled the active operations and the night shift handled the monitoring, and the monitoring was its own kind of work that most people could not sustain. You watched numbers change on panels, and you logged the changes, and you made small adjustments, and you stayed awake and alert through the long desert nights alone, with the hum of the equipment and the readings that told you what was happening in a system you could not directly observe. 17 years of that work made me precise and patient and comfortable with the idea that most of what matters in a system is invisible, and that your job is to read the indicators rather than the thing itself. That is exactly what this posting requires. I am stationed at a single-room patrol cabin in the interior of Yellowstone, in a section of the park that sits between a major thermal basin to the west and a river drainage to the east. The terrain around the cabin is open, a broad, flat area of thermal ground, pale and cracked, with scattered hot spring vents and mud features, and the occasional geyser vent that releases on no schedule I have been able to determine in 8 months of watching it. The flat extends about 400 yards in each direction before it meets the tree line on the north and south sides, and the drainage on the east and the basin on the west. At night, the flat is lit from below on active nights, that faint blue-orange glow that the bacterial mats and the mineral content of the water throw back at the sky. And on those nights, the patrol feels like walking on something that is barely containing itself. There are 12 rules. The laminated sheet was faded enough that whoever typed them had done so some time ago, and whoever had been laminating rule sheets for this posting had done it more than once, because the lamination had a newer look than the type beneath it. Someone had been maintaining these rules for longer than the current sheet suggested. Here is what they say. Rule 1. Your patrol covers the thermal flat in a circuit that begins and ends at the cabin. The circuit has 8 marked points, flat metal discs set flush with the ground, numbered 1 through 8, arranged in a rough oval around the flat. Visit each disc in sequence. Do not vary the sequence. Do not skip a disc. If a disc is buried or obscured, locate it by feel before moving to the next one. The disc must be physically confirmed, not just assumed present. The discs flush with the ground are harder to find than posts or markers would be, and I believe they are flush with the ground for a reason. Something about the patrol that requires the ranger to crouch down and confirm each point, by touch, rather than by sight. The act of confirmation is not incidental. In 8 months of locating those discs in the dark, running my fingers across the cracked thermal crust to find the metal edge of each one, I have come to understand that the finding is part of the circuit, not just the walking. Rule 2. The patrol circuit must be completed between 10 in the evening and 4 in the morning. You have 6 hours to complete a circuit that takes approximately 90 minutes at steady pace. The remaining time is your own. What the rule is managing is not your speed. It is your presence on the flat during the hours it is active. You must be on the flat, completing a circuit at some point during each 2-hour window within the shift. Presence during all 3 windows is required. 3 windows, 10 to midnight, midnight to 2, 2 to 4, 1 circuit visible in each window. The 90-minute circuit overlaps 2 windows if I time it right, which I do every shift. The flat is most active during the 2nd window, midnight to 2, and I plan my circuit to put me at the center of the oval during that window between discs 4 and 5, where the glow from below is strongest and the ground temperature is highest, and the sense of something pressurized beneath the crust is most immediate. Rule 3. Do not speak aloud on the flat between 11 in the evening and 1 in the morning. No radio transmissions during this window. No talking to yourself. If you need to count your steps or your timing, count silently. Radio checks are scheduled at 10, 2, and 4 specifically to avoid this window. If an emergency requires radio contact during the window, move to the cabin first. The cabin is outside the silence zone. The flat is not. The silence window over the thermal flat is the rule that took the longest to feel natural. Water treatment work involved constant equipment noise, and the silence of the Nevada desert nights was a different silence from the silence this rule requires. This silence is chosen and maintained in a place that is not itself silent. The flat hisses and burbles and releases steam at irregular intervals, and the geyser vent pops when it fires. All of that continues. Only I am silent. It took about 2 months before the chosen silence started to feel less like an absence and more like a contribution. Something I was adding to the flat rather than something being taken from me. Rule 4. At disc 5, which sits on the eastern edge of the oval nearest the drainage, stop for 40 seconds. Face east toward the drainage. Do not look at the drainage directly. Fix your gaze on the tree line above the drainage, the ridge, not the water. Hold for 40 seconds. Then turn back to the circuit and continue to disc 6. Do not extend the stop. Do not shorten it. 40 seconds east facing at disc 5 every circuit. Disc 5 is where the circuit feels different from the rest. The eastern edge of the flat is where the thermal ground ends and the regular ground begins, and the transition is abrupt enough that you feel it under your boots in a single step. At disc 5, I am standing at that edge, facing east, the drainage below the tree line somewhere in the dark, and the 40 seconds has a quality that the rest of the circuit does not have. Like a seam in the night. Like the point where 2 different systems meet and the meeting requires acknowledgement. I give it 40 seconds every circuit, and I have never felt that it was the wrong amount of time. It is exactly the right amount of time in a way I cannot explain by any logic I have access to. Rule 5. The cabin has a monitoring panel on the north wall with 6 gauges measuring ground temperature at 6 points around the flat. Log all 6 readings at the start and end of each shift. If any reading is changed by more than 8 degrees between the start and end log, radio dispatch immediately after the end log and report the specific gauge and the specific change. Do not investigate the source of the change. Log and report only. The gauges are the secondary space of this posting in the way that other postings have a corridor or a cellar. They are the measurable thing, the thing I attend to on a schedule and record precisely without interpreting. In 8 months, the readings have changed by more than 8 degrees on 11 occasions. I have reported all 11. Dispatch has responded to each report with the same instruction. Noted. Continue standard protocol. On the largest change, gauge 3 showing a 19-degree increase over a single shift, the dispatcher added 1 sentence. Stay off the northwestern quadrant of the flat until the reading normalizes. It normalized by the following shift. I have not been back to that quadrant between circuit points since, without checking gauge 3 first. Rule 6. If you find the cabin door open when you return from a circuit, do not enter immediately. Stand on the porch for 60 seconds facing the door. Then enter. If anything inside the cabin has changed position during your circuit, note it in the log and continue your shift. Do not attempt to determine how the change occurred. The cabin door has been open on my return from circuits on 6 occasions. Each time I stood on the porch for 60 seconds and went inside. Each time something small had moved. The mug once, a chair once, the logbook itself on 2 occasions, open to a different page than I had left it. I noted each change with the same precision I would use to note a gauge reading. Object, original position, new position, time of discovery. Then I continued my shift. Rule 7. The thermal flat produces sounds between midnight and 2 in the morning that will at certain intervals resemble human voices. They will seem to be calling from specific directions. They will seem to be calling your name or words that are almost your name. Do not respond. Do not alter your circuit to move toward or away from the direction of the sound. Maintain your route. Log the direction and the duration. Continue. I have logged 43 voice-adjacent sounds from the flat in 8 months. They are not voices. I want to be precise about that, the way the rule is precise about it. They resemble voices the way a particular arrangement of shadows resembles a face. The resemblance is real, and the thing producing it is not a face. The flat is a hydrothermal system, producing sounds through the movement of superheated water through mineral channels, and the sounds that system makes at certain pressures and temperatures pass through the human auditory system and activate the pattern recognition that evolution built for detecting speech. I am not ignoring voices. I am correctly categorizing sounds. That distinction matters for doing this job and staying intact while doing it. Rule 8. At the end of each shift at the cabin, log the final gauge readings and then go to the center of the flat, between discs 4 and 5, and stand for 60 seconds. Face north. When the 60 seconds is complete, return to the cabin and end your shift. Do not skip the center stand. Do not abbreviate it. The center stand is the closing of the circuit in the same way the first disc is the opening of it. The center stand at end of shift is the part of every night that I have thought about most in 8 months. Standing in the middle of a thermal flat at the end of a long night with the glow coming up from below and the steam rising around me and the drainage dark to the east and the basin active to the west and the silence of the flat around me and 60 seconds to stand in the center of all of it before I go inside. Some nights the 60 seconds feels like nothing. Just time passing. Some nights the 60 seconds feels like the flat knowing I was here. Like the logging of my presence in whatever system tracks such things. Like the water beneath the crust circulating through its channels below my feet, recording the weight and the warmth of a person standing at the center and filing it somewhere in the geology of the place before the night ends and the record closes until tomorrow. I found the amendment on my 51st shift, tucked behind the laminated rule sheet, between the sheet and the desk surface, as if it had been there the whole time, and I had not thought to look. It said, "The circuit you walk does not prevent the thermal system from doing what it does. Nothing prevents that. The circuit maintains a record of human presence at this location on a nightly basis. The record matters because this location was used for this purpose before the park existed, and before the monitoring station was built, and before anyone thought to write rules about it. The rules are recent. The purpose is not. You are the latest in a long sequence of people who have stood at the center of this flat and faced north and given the ground 60 seconds of their attention at the end of a long night. The sequence must not break. That is the only instruction that has ever mattered here. The rest is detail. The sequence must not break. I go out every shift and I find the discs in the dark with my fingers, and I walk the oval and I hold 40 seconds at disc 5 facing east, and I stand silent through the middle of the night, and at the end of it I go to the center and I face north, and I give the ground its 60 seconds. 8 months. The sequence has not broken. I will not be the one who breaks it.